Jake Morrison, a hardened ex-Black Ops soldier, faces his most traumatic mission yet when his daughter vanishes without a trace. With nothing left to lose, Jake decides to go after those who took her. With each step closer to the truth, his mission becomes a harrowing journey of revenge. Will his unwavering resolve be enough to find out the truth and make those bad guys responsible pay? The film begins with Jake Morrison on his way to a pub in a city in California. Jake looks to be looking for someone rather than watching the strippers dance at the bar. While Jake is sipping beer, one of the strippers teases him, despite his lack of interest at the time. However, as the two speak, young Bobby approaches them. Bobby keeps mocking Jake and asks him to a battle, causing quite a commotion. Shortly after, many police officers came to protect the scene. One of them is Ben, and at this point, they just let Bobby go and take Jake to the police station. At the police station, Jake is grilled by Ben, who is not a cop but appears more assertive than the other two officers. A few moments later, the questioning is interrupted when Ben's sister Maggie calls and asks him to come home since she has prepared supper for him. The guy exits the room, instructing the two police officers to compel Jake to open his lips. The two police officers there are fully obedient to him. They even wrap Jake's head and make it difficult for him to breathe to get information about his reasons for visiting the city. Fortunately, the disturbance in the questioning room attracted the attention of another police officer, Kim. Kim immediately condemns them, informing them that this case is her responsibility and their behavior is against police station regulations. When Kim releases the handcuffs, Jake snatches the gun off Kim's body and threatens the officer, allowing him to escape. He promises Kim that he won't murder her since all he wants is to get out of there. Jake then snatches Kim's keys and swiftly drives away in the police car. In the next scene, Ben sees Bobby, who happens to be his son, after he has just arrived at his residence. The young man says he knows nothing about Jake when Ben asks him a question. Ben then asks why the man in the club is holding this girl's photo. Ben urges Bobby to use his weed-soaked mind to think deeply, but all he can do is stay silent because he doesn't know who that man is. Conversely, Jake pauses in the middle to look at the trunk, which appears to contain a weapon. Additionally, he answers Jen's handy-talkie when she requests that he return to the police station. Jake now seems to clarify why he traveled to the city, saying that he was only interested in learning what had happened to his daughter. Ben and Maggie are now meeting with their supervisor, Bert, on the same day that they met with some investors to talk about the largest aquifer business in the Southwest. Investors are interested in the company idea that Ben and Bert had formed during their brief talk. After a meeting with all the investors, they are determined to ensure that Ben's business does not let up this time. Maggie then abruptly reminds Ben that they don't want anyone to tamper with their billion-dollar business. But as soon as Maggie steps inside the house, Jake appears and aims his gun straight at Ben. Looking to have finally realized what he's doing, Jake speaks with Bobby and learns that he's doing the right thing because Bobby is wearing a bracelet that belonged to his daughter, Melissa. Jake continues pointing the gun at them and asks about his daughter, whose whereabouts are currently unknown. In this state of panic, the young man eventually confesses that he didn't mean to hurt Melissa during their previous get-together. He starts by telling Jake what occurred the night before. Bobby shot Melissa with drugs as they were having fun, which led to an overdose. Bobby doesn't have much time to tell Jake more about her because Jake shoots Bobby with his rifle. Maggie, in the meantime, hears the disturbance and goes outside with her rifle, shooting Jake multiple times. As Jake escapes, several deceptive people who have been Ben's personal bodyguard and business protector come after him. Stone is leading a group of nasty individuals, and Jake is now shooting at them. Even so, he kills a few of them. Stone then asks Bartlett to meet him at the police station when he begs for assistance. After seeing one of the force members killed, Bartlett arrives there looking scared and declines to participate. Jake eventually finds the officer, but he escapes death because Bartlett acknowledges that he is only an ordinary officer and not as dishonest as the others. Jake tells Bartlett where he is right now, knowing that Bartlett is Kim's partner. After that, he decides to rest in a cabin he discovered nearby, where he spends the night tending to his shoulder's gunshot wounds. Aside from his daughter, whom he had always abandoned when summoned to serve, Jake also thinks back on his ex-wife. This is where it becomes clear that Jake was a soldier at one point and was involved in some Black Ops activity. According to his recollections, Jake was bidding farewell to Murphy, his military leader. It comes out that Jake could not bear to continuously leave his wife and kids behind, which is why he decided to exit. The father expresses intense remorse and remembers leaving his daughter with Bill, one of his close friends. He took this action since at the time, Melissa was known to have been addicted to drugs. As a result, Jake abandons his daughter at Bill's house, hoping that Bill will be able to rescue her from her miserable existence. Bert unexpectedly appears and reminds Ben, who is still grieving the tragic loss of his kid and is already under a lot of stress, to make sure that the chaos that occurred is kept a secret from outsiders, particularly investors who might flee and steal his business model. As all of this is going on, Bartlett, who has just arrived at the police station, tells Kim right once what took place at the plantation. Maggie discovers that a helicopter arrived at their house the next day while she was preparing food in the kitchen. They don't know who Murphy is either, but it turns out that he already knows about Jake. Murphy says that Ben has to tell Jake the truth about what he's been searching for since he is at a loss for what to do. The elderly man also informs Ben that the individual with whom he is now interacting is a former subordinate of Murphy's Special Forces unit, rather than the average person. In addition, he won't give up and will keep searching for Ben until he finds all the information he needs. Going back to Jake, he is awakened from his sleep in the hut by Ben's men, who have located him. They then give Jake a severe beating. Stone tells Jake the day the incident happened, effectively admitting to what he did. He was tasked with watching Bobby one night while he was out having fun with Melissa. At this point, he found Melissa, who had overdosed on Bobby's narcotics and sexually assaulted her. Nonetheless, he claimed that Ben was the one who killed her. After learning of her daughter's passing, Jake loses all control over his anger and stabs Stone in the neck with a knife. Kim has just arrived at the police station, and Murphy will help her find and talk to his former military subordinates. After that, the action shifts to their history, with Bill informing Jake that Melissa has left his home. Bill is aware of her whereabouts and companionship. This is how Jake became aware of Melissa's existence in this community. Now that Murphy and the police officers discuss their plan, Jake contacts the radio station and starts speaking with Murphy. At that moment, Jake begins telling Murphy he is doing all this because he is still searching for answers related to Melissa's passing. Murphy suddenly displays a bitter and disappointed expression, knowing fully what happened to Jake's daughter. It turns out that Jake is not only Murphy's subordinate soldier, but also Murphy's son, which is another surprising discovery. This implies that Murphy's granddaughter now motivates Jake's thirst for revenge against every one of Ben's men. Murphy now understands that there is nothing he can do to stop Jake from returning to attack all of them. Thus, he requests that Kim and the others prepare and refrain from shooting Jake. Many soldiers are stationed at their headquarters, closely monitoring Jake's progress. Jake succeeds in taking out the bad men one by one, but a grenade blast once seriously injures him. As a result, he chooses to withdraw to a nearby church. As Murphy keeps an eye on things from the police station, he learns that Jake is en route to an abandoned church. Thus, he chooses to accompany Kim and Bartlett to the spot immediately. Jake reappears in the car, unexpectedly wounded. After that, Jake orders them to head to Ben's place while getting into the car. We now go to Ben, sitting by his park by the lakeside, thinking back on what he did earlier. Maggie then returns to their home, and Ben follows shortly after. And think of how shocked he was to discover Maggie held captive by Jake. At this moment, Jake forces Ben to reveal what had happened to Melissa, but the man refuses and says he knows nothing about Jake's daughter. Jake then breaks Maggie's fingers, prompting Ben to finally reveal all the truth about what has happened. This is the point at which the bad guy reveals that Melissa was still alive when Bobby brought her home. Moreover, she had just woken up and was in a semi-conscious state due to an overdose. But the panic that had erupted at the time had led Ben to decide to kill the girl by immersing her in a lake. Maggie saw the wicked deed as well, but she ignored it. Ben was unaware that Jake had brought a gadget to record his confession. As a result, the three of them and the other police officers dash to Ben's residence. Ben believes Jake is under police siege and that his only option is to give up and be taken out. In the end, Kim feels sorry for what had happened to Jake's daughter and informs him that help is on the way. Finally, the old man orders all police officers to arrest Ben and Maggie. Bartlett, who is transporting Ben and Maggie, is suddenly stopped by a car. Bartlett then exits the police car without saying a word and walks away. After that, someone approaches the vehicle, and both are forced to face Murphy.